together, right? Coming together as a community, as you said, group economics, we could buy so much more. Imagine if every person in this room right now put up $1,000, we could go and buy a couple buildings like nothing and get a crazy return on our money. In essence, that's why we kind of came up with flips of dollars. One of the things, the person right next to you could be your next partner. Never be scared to communicate with the person to the right and to the left of you. You never know.
Hi everyone, how are y'all? Happy Wednesday. Sorry, we're a smidge late. Also, hopefully the broadcast is working. I was having a little technical difficulties. On my end, it looks like half the screen is cut off. So hopefully half the screen is not cut off. All right, so let us continue. Today, we are getting into the world of real estate seminars and alleged real estate investing, alleged scams, foolishness. So shout out to all of y'all watching live and everyone watching the replay. I'm Stephanie, your favorite recovering lawyer. And sometimes we cover scams and the underlying causes of said alleged scams. And today we're specifically going to cover why housing is a human right and why things like buying the block have unintended or actually unforeseen or foreseen very negative consequences, because capitalism, no matter the complexion, is still foolishness. And I'm drinking water because I lost my voice, so hopefully it sounds all right. All right, so here's our agenda. I'm going to make this a little bigger because I cannot see. All right, so our agenda is going to be welcome to the world of real estate seminars. If you're not familiar, or if you remember back in the day, if one of your parents loved to look at the model homes, I had a parent like that in the South. It is definitely a pastime. In New York, there are no model homes to look at where you go and look at houses that you couldn't afford just to see the interior decoration. It was a lovely pastime. So that has morphed into real estate seminars, which are costly and, foolishness. So then we're going to speak about DJ Envy and the claims, because DJ Envy is the more known half of the two people in this lawsuit. And then the myth of group economics, because as mentioned by Cesar Pina in the beginning, there is this idea that group economics is the way for Black and brown people to get out of systemic racism and poverty. And I'm here to tell you, unfortunately, no. The answer is no. And then we're going to get into by buying the block and being the best Black capitalist you can be. And I'm being quite sarcastic. And then a little bit credible money management experts. So I figured I'd leave y'all with some useful tips, because in the 3.5 years that I have been paying off my $304,000, what was the starting amount? $304,000, I can't remember the exact amount, and 17 trifling cents over the past 3.5 years. I have learned a lot about managing my money better. My credit has gotten a lot better. And, I've learned some things, and I followed some great accounts that have helped me along the way. So I figured we'd do a little personal finance 101 to be of some help to y'all. All right. And then a little sip and discuss. So I hope y'all are drinking some wine if you're not at work. So shout out to Patreon. As always, I appreciate all of you, and an extra shout out to the Sancerre tier with Courtney, Edna, Judy, Juanita, and David. Thank you so much for your support. It helps a lot. Also, subscribing to the channel helps a lot. I honestly forget to remind people to subscribe, but subscribing to the channel shows the algorithm and, people that want to partner with the channel that the channel is worth a little something. So if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, like, or if you don't agree, you could dislike, that's fine, and leave a comment. All right. All right. And trigger warning to what we're going to talk about on Patreon. On Sunday, we are going to talk about the Lizzo lawsuit. And it's very unfortunate. And having read the 44 pages of the complaint and doing little cross references of what is available online, we're going to go through that, the nuance of it, of what is occurring, unfortunately, with the allegations, as well as somebody who worked in entertainment before I worked in tech, why entertainment breeds a level of workplace hostility, to be quite frank, that goes unchecked, no matter, unfortunately, the celebrity, and why, celebrity worship never leads anywhere good but to disappointment. However, the specific dogpiling we're seeing on Lizzo and Cardi B for rightfully flinging something at somebody who flung something at her is interesting. So we're going to talk about that on Sunday on Patreon. Also, if you haven't seen the Patreon link pop up, if you're on Patreon, don't worry, I didn't update it yet. I'm going to update it right after this. All right. And there's a trigger warning there if you want to read the complaint on your own, just to be forewarned. It is quite graphic, I would say, the complaint. Okay, so back into what we're going to talk about today, which is welcome to the world of real estate seminars. Okay. Now, if you're not familiar, and I would say this is not new, there for many years, I would say the rise of the pandemic has given rise to this, but ever since 2008. So in 2008, there was the Great Recession that in 2008, essentially Wall Street bet against regular people and people in their homes and their mortgages, and sold the mortgage as a separate asset in order to drive up prices. And essentially, if you live in certain places in Miami, in our neighborhood, this happened, and it was quite sad. They started giving out what could only be called a speculative mortgage to people that they knew that couldn't pay the actual mortgage. So you had mortgages with adjustable rates. So somebody would start with an interest rate of say 5%. It would balloon to 10, 12%. They knew they couldn't afford it. And essentially they would sell the house out under them. And then a bunch of foreclosures happened. In our neighborhood, I graduated high school in 2009. A lot of people lost their home. And what that opened up was when their houses went to foreclosure, other people swooped in and were like, hey, buy this house on foreclosure. You can get this house for cheap. You can flip this house and you too can become Jeff Bezos. You're not going to become Jeff Bezos. You're just going to become a pariah to your community. But that has not stopped people from going along with these real estate seminars. And I understand that bougie Negroes do not like when you talk against ownership, because there is a very special and hard-earned relationship, particularly with land ownership of Black people, not only in the United States, but in the Caribbean as well, anywhere there has been chattel slavery. However, that does not make it okay for us to want to essentially see people get evicted. So this is a advertisement for the most recent real estate ride along that Cesar Pina is hosting. And we are going to get into who specifically are the defendants. If you pay, in the next slide, a cute $700, you get to attend. And this is happening in St. Louis. St. Louis, anywhere in the Midwest, does have large amounts of foreclosure, working class and middle class people losing their homes. Whether you are a novice, according to the Eventbrite invitation, whether you're a novice investor or a seasoned professional looking to expand your network and gain new perspectives, this real estate ride-along offers a unique blend of education, hands-on experience, and social interaction. Don't miss this exciting opportunity to learn from the best in the industry and connect with like-minded individuals. I've noticed only certain people say like-minded individuals when they don't want to hear anything from anybody else. Passionate about real estate investing. Day 1, registration followed by welcome reception. Day 2, workshop and professional panel. Day 3, ride along. And the assumption is given by the charter buses in the beginning. I assume you are riding through these depressed neighborhoods and seeing whose house you can foreclose upon. Yeah, this sounds really great, really communal. And that, I stand corrected, is not $700. It's $799 for the opportunity to ride along through neighborhoods that I guess they are trying to, beautify, aka gentrify. Now, into the claims. So the claims in this lawsuit, the first count against all defendants. So the defendants are the various companies as well as shell companies that Cesar Pina as well as DJ Envy both own, either or depending on which company. So you have violation of Jersey Consumer Fraud Act. The second count is just straight up fraud. Third count, breach of contract. Fourth count, negligent misrepresentation, which we've covered all of those. The ones we're going to talk about a little bit in more detail are the securities fraud, which is very interesting that is one of the allegations. And the sixth count, which is conspiracy to commit fraud, securities fraud, negligent misrepresentation, and to violate the New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act because this specific incident occurred in New Jersey, allegedly. And the sixth count is solely against DJ Envy. And when we get there, it is an important lesson as to why you should really mind the company you keep. All right, so here are our plaintiffs and our defendants. So you have Trevor Roman. English is going really good today, clearly. Trevor Roman suing Cesar Pina from Start to Flipping LLC. That's who we saw in the beginning of the intro. Warehouse LLC, Warehouse Holdings LLC. As you can see, there are a number of shell companies with the same names, which is interesting. Warehouse Investments LLC, Warehouse Limited Liability CO, Warehouse Real Estate LLC. They could have got a little more creative with these names. Flip the Dow LLC, doing business as Flip to Dow, and Rashawn Casey, aka DJ Envy. All right. It's giving lots of paperwork. Now, it should be noted the majority of these claims, as well as the allegations, are against Cesar Pina. And unless you are interested in flipping a house and live in the tri-state area, you probably are not familiar with him. And that is for good reason. He is essentially, according to this complaint, the doer behind the whole operation. So defendant Pina is an author and public figure with a large following on social media, 305,000 Instagram followers to be exact. Pina claims to fame is his alleged successful career as a real estate investor, as he claims to have made a fortune in flipping residential properties. The subtle shade in here is very loud. Y'all always make me laugh. Defendant Pina has published a book titled Flipping Keys, which I guess is a play on, because keys that's not originally what keys means, but I'm not going to say that on YouTube, which highlights his exploits in his real estate dealings. Defendant Pina also operates seminars in New Jersey with various celebrity co-hosts, which is an important tenet of how this operates and allegedly how he rose to his notoriety, wherein he purports to teach attendees how to flip real estate profitably. So essentially how a real estate flip works, if you watch any HGTV, you will see an HGTV tries to gussy it up where they don't actually show, a poor family who has worked their whole life to own this house getting evicted from said house. HGTV shows a dilapidated house that nobody has lived in for 20 years allegedly. And, these nice people who love to fix things just magically come to own the home, according to HGTV, because it has to look, a little more family friendly. You buy the house. Say you buy a house in South Carolina, $250,000. The house needs a little, repair. You need a little curb appeal, which is a buzzword, just to make things look a little pretty, not necessarily functional. You put in $20,000 of work into the house. You don't fix the foundation. You don't give a damn about the roof, but the house is pretty and you cut the grass. You gave it new paint. Now you have essentially paid $270,000 for the house. Your goal is to sell the house for, let's say, $325,000, $370,000, make a profit. If you sell a house for tax reasons before you live in said house for 1 year, you're going to pay a shit ton in taxes, which is why in going through these allegations, this alleged scheme doesn't make any financial sense, which should have been the first red flag that this is a scheme. Now, in describing Defendant Casey, which is DJ Envy, the lawsuit states, Defendant Casey is a well-known radio personality who co-hosts a show and segment called The Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club, which says occasional, very wild and ignorant things. In or around 2018, Defendant Pina began to host real estate seminars throughout the state of New Jersey, which he advertises under the title Flipping New Jersey. In or around 2018, Defendant Casey began to regularly invite and feature Defendant Pina on his radio show, The Breakfast Club. This is where the allegations start to come in that essentially it depends on how much you want to believe that someone is turning a blind eye. At the very best, if we're going with these allegations on face value, that even if DJ Envy is turning a blind eye and said he wanted to get his shack on and he wanted to sponsor something, why would you turn a blind eye to this? In going through some of the Instagram posts, some of these seminars are held in speaking about Paterson, New Jersey. Paterson, New Jersey is one of the poorest places in New Jersey. If you have a church grandma, you have been to Paterson, New Jersey to do community service, as I have when I was a child and a teenager and in college. The idea that you are flipping houses to help the community by robbing from the community is nonsensical. All right. In or around 2018, defendant Casey began to appear alongside defendant Pina at Flipping New Jersey seminars in person, where he promoted Pina's real estate skills and business strategies to attendees. So he was essentially the marketing, hey, I am a self-made rich man now, and I support this other self-made alleged rich man now, and you too can flip the block and buy the block and do all those things. All right. Now, according to this specific plaintiff, there are numerous other people who online have stated they have lost hundreds of thousands to over $1 million by doing business with all those various shell companies. This specific plaintiff went to the seminar, so they paid around their $700 to $1,000, depending on what seminar they went to. And then afterwards, they decided, you know what? I really believe in this. I want to make this. I'm going to pay an extra $2,500 because I want a one-on-one meeting with Cesar Pina because he's doing so well. And that one-on-one is really going to get me to where I'm going. A lot of these real estate flipping companies, personalities, I think is a better way to put them, make the majority off their money off of just the seminar. It's similarly the same as the course people. The same thing I've been saying for the past 2 years about most of the black girls in tech that are selling courses. Course on what? How to fix your resume? You can ask your friend who has corporate hopped for that. There's nothing you need to buy from a course girl in tech. I'm seeing now people that have gotten laid off from tech because tech has had now a huge course correction after hiring all these people and still selling courses about how to get in tech. Why? Tech is hemorrhaging employees. What sense? Okay, let us continue. Defendant Pina informed plaintiff that he could make an appreciable return. Hold on. This is where the securities allegations come into play. On his capital, if he agreed to invest in a property that defendant owned that he would renovate and flip at a profit. So the idea behind all of this is, hey, you don't have to do any of the labor. You don't have to be like HGTV and Property Brothers and actually fix anything. You don't need a crew. You don't need to do the construction. You just need to give me your hard-earned coins and I am a handyman, or I'm going to hire somebody and we're going to flip the house. The plaintiff was told that his financial investment was required to finance the cost of renovating the property, and he would receive a sizable return on his investment upon the sale of the property. Now, hopefully this is not too convoluted. This is the timeline of the alleged events. And I want you to know the numbers here that I wrote down are all of the times that the plaintiff stated, hey, what happened to my money? And allegedly the defendant, and specifically in this case, Cesar Pina, stated, oh, it's fine. I'm working on it. I'm fixing it. Let's just roll your money over 5 times. Now, it is really hard sometimes, I think, when people see someone being scammed to have empathy for someone being scammed. It's like, why would you do that? In the words of GW, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, can't fool me again. Which that he quoted incorrectly because GW is not the brightest, never was. However, to get bamboozled 5 times is a lot. I do think it is worth noting the level of desperation sometimes people believe in an alleged scam and just wanting to make it. So before we get into the specifics of the timeline that I wrote out, one thing to know is that every time the plaintiff allegedly invested more money into this scheme, he was told, hey, I'm going to give you not only your principal back, I'm going to give you a return on your investment back within 5 months. Now, again, if you buy a house and you flip a house, this is just basic property law, tax law, 101, and you do not live in the house for 1 year, you pay more money in taxes. It doesn't make sense that you bought the house and 5 months later you expect to sell the house and get a return of $30,000. The tax money would eat away at that. So why are we playing a get rich quick scheme? And part of that has to do with the level of desperation that people are in, to be honest, and trying to have some empathy and some understanding. And also, a used car salesman can sell you a rock. So let's go through what allegedly happened. Oh, let me move me. So this started in October of 2020. Plaintiff, so PL is plaintiff and DEF, that I labeled, DEF is defendant. Plaintiff's initial investment of $100,000 for one home. and he was promised $30,000 in return. So he entered into a joint venture agreement with Cesar Pina and one of those various shell corporations, and he was promised within 5 months he would make 30 grand. Now, after the taxes on that, that's probably like 15 grand. Why are we entering into this for $15,000? In the long run, that's not a huge amount of money that's going to give you financial security. But that's what he did. October of 2020, this occurred. Now, March of 2021, he hadn't heard from Cesar Pina allegedly. He said, hey, sir, many months have passed. We are in a new year. Where's my money? To which Cesar Pina allegedly on the 12th was like, oh, it's fine. I'm working on it. I know I promised you a return of $30,000. Here you go. It's $30,000. However, I'm not going to give you your 100K, which was the initial investment. Instead, you should roll over this 100K investment into a second investment. Now, 100K is more money than 30K. So I could see how, most people would be terrified and be like, no, run me back my 100K. I don't know what you did. Like, why did I have to reach out to you in the first place for my money? What are you doing? But I think in the belief in this, he just continued along with the program. So he then invested another $50,000. So now the total is $150,000, and he was promised $52,500 as the return on this second investment. Okay, now this is March. August of that same year rolls around. He hasn't heard from the defendant. He allegedly reaches out and is like, hey, again, friend, I know you're very busy. You are a best-selling book author. Allegedly, my money. To which defendant Pina, instead of giving him the promise of the return, the $52,500, he's like, here's some interest on your money, $2,500. Ain't no way I'm giving you 150 grand and you giving me back $2,500. No, we're going to at least argue. If not, maybe some violence. I think this whole thing, again, the more I read into it and the more I read into other people who had these same allegations from the same company, it's the level of desperation people are willing to do because a traditional job they feel is not paying off, or it's very hard to get access to a traditional job depending on what neighborhood you're from, depending on your background, etc. So the way this is positioned, it's often positioned as like, hey, not only are you helping the community, I don't know how you can position buying somebody's foreclosed home as helping the community, but not only are you allegedly helping the community, but you're also going to help for yourself. So it's okay. Be patient. These things take time. So now he gets the $2,500 interest payment. So the payments are getting lower. And then on January of the next year, do we have January? Oh, so I lied. Because we're going to number 3. This happened 5 times. So in August of that same year, so a month passes, the beginning of August to August 30th, around there, the plaintiff rolls over the $200K investment. It's like, okay, we're going to roll it over into number 3. We're on the 3rd investment. He still has never seen the base amount he invested back, but he believes in it. He rolls it over. And now the promise is going up. We've gone up from 30K promise to receive as a return to 52K to now 70K. The 70K, it just fails. At this point, Pina tells him, like, listen, the house didn't get sold. It wasn't me. It's the market. The market in 2021, we're in 2021, is pretty good. That's a hot housing market. That's a seller's market. We've come down from the pandemic, but that's where it was. All right. Now, January 2022, we have gone into the next year. He chases him down again. And he's like, again, sir, my money. To which Pina tells him, yeah, it didn't go well. It failed. So we're just going to reinvest your $270,000 into a new house. We're on property number 4. And the promise has now gone up. We've gone from $70,000 promise to $94,500 promise. It should be noted, all of these promises of return of payment are not your 30 is now going to be 70. It's 30 plus 50 plus 70 plus 90. You don't have to be that good at math to see the man is slowly getting in the hole for more and more money. And then you have the plaintiff He's promised $94,000. And then in June of 2022 now, because again, all the way, we're started in October 2020, we're in June of 2022, he has still not seen his base amount of money invested. To hell with the amount that he was supposed to make off of this money, his base 150K, he's never seen it. Never heard of it. I mean, I'm sure he didn't forget about it, but he hasn't seen it. So at this point in June of 2022, he threatens legal action as like, hey, I feel like you're scamming me. I'm going to sue you because I don't know where my money is. I don't know what you're doing. I just want my base money back. Like, to hell with the amount that you promised me. This is foolishness. To which he receives 2 checks, allegedly, from Cesar Pina, totaling $163,000. The issue with these checks is, according to the complaint, he is told, hey, you can't cash those checks. You know, sometimes you tell somebody like, hey, I'm going to give you some money. I'm going to give you this check, but you can't cash this check because there's no money in that account. Yes, there's no money in the account. So he tells him to wait. Don't cash the check yet. Now, later on, he then shows up at his job and is like, okay, you told me not to cash these checks. However, I need my money back. What is the problem? He then receives 2 checks, $80,000 each, so $160,000, to which he cashes those checks, and those checks go through. Now, at this point, he's gotten his base amount of money, but not the promise of the investment, the return, because they have allegedly sold a security at this point. You telling somebody, you give me this money, you are going to get this in return, is selling a security. That's what a stock is. So in May, we're in 2023 now, he keeps hounding down Pina. He keeps hounding him down, to which, according to the plaintiff, Pina becomes annoyed with him and is like, you know what, I'm not dealing with you anymore, and blocks his number. And that's how you get this lawsuit. Which is foolishness. And going through that in written legal form was also foolishness because it's written in a very dry, boring way. So as you see here, you have everything promised in the orders of all of the different, the 5 different transactions, and they're all from different LLCs and corporations as well. All right. So he gets credited $270. He's owed $94,000. The total goes up to $364,000. And every time they keep telling him, in 5 months, you're going to get your money. In 5 months, you're going to get your money. It's all going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And 5 months turned into 3 years, and the man didn't receive the return on his investment. It didn't happen. All right. Now, in May of 2023, if you scroll around DJ Envy's Instagram as well as Cesar Pina, you will see some posts that are like, don't believe the lies. The truth will come out. The truth. And lies are more entertaining than the truth. I always think it's interesting when people say that. It's like, or actually, you know, the truth could be entertaining too, which is that this didn't never make any sense. In or around May 2023, several high-profile social media figures and celebrities began to share information on social media to the effect that defendant Pina had scammed or defrauded them out of several $100,000 or more dollars, with one victim claiming to have been taken for $1 million. The exact figure, I think, is like 1.2 mil. To date, defendant Pina has denied these allegations, and yes, the comments on his Instagram are very much turned off. I checked. But it appears that his list of alleged victims continues to grow, and they're also still selling seminars, and that the plaintiff is one of many who fell prey to these fraudulent and deceptive tactics, whereby Pina has promised interest in his properties to prospective investors in exchange for receiving capital investments without having sufficient equity in any property. So the allegation is that not one house was owned. In exchange for receiving capital investments without having sufficient equity in any property to, in fact, repay any of the investments, and without having any of the properties in a position to actually be sold at a profit. Now, this is one of those things where throughout the entire complaint, you see defendant Pina, where does DJ Envy come in? And the reason why he's being roped into this is the allegation, again, is that without DJ Envy's celebrity and without him being so well known from being on The Breakfast Club, Pina would not have been able to get here and been able to pull off this level of foolishness. So, defendant Pina's website describes Casey, that's DJ Envy, as his business partner. Casey has also frequently referred to Pina as his business partner in social media posts. It should be known those posts ain't there no more. Those posts are very much removed. They are very much somewhere that is not there. 1 second. Let me fix the camera. Oh, did I fix it? Let me see. Oh, didn't get it. Did I get it this time? Okay, I got it. Which is interesting. Evidence tampering is a little bit alleged evidence tampering. If you're doing it, is much more serious in criminal cases than in lawsuits, but you can get sanctions in civil lawsuits as well for deleting alleged evidence, even though they have screenshots of it anyway. Casey has benefited financially from Pina's investment scams through equity interest in one or more of Pina's strawman shell companies. So even if you want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt and be like, he didn't know. Why are you continuing along with this if you don't go and stick your nose in the actual business to see what your alleged business partner is doing? I'm not getting dragged in the mud for anybody. For what? For what reason? Into a scam? An alleged scam? So defendant Casey has also loudly and publicly boosted and promoted Pina and his real estate investment enterprise since 2018, also on The Breakfast Club, which I find really interesting that the lawsuit doesn't name The Breakfast Club as one of the co-conspirators, because if I was a lawyer, that's what I would have added. I'm like, oh, sue the deep pockets, sue the radio company as well, the radio station. All right, so with all of the Jersey Consumer Fraud Act, which is essentially failing to disclose. When you fail to disclose or you have diminished the value of somebody's money, you have committed fraud. Easy enough to understand. The second act specifically lists the amount of money that the plaintiff is suing for, which is an amount of $280,000. And that amount of $280,000 is all the money that he was promised, as well as, I think at this point, they have technically covered his principal amount that he invested, but not the money that he was promised. And so we're just going to skip to this one. One I thought was really interesting was the fifth count, which is securities fraud. So securities fraud is essentially usually when security fraud occurs is when you sell somebody an interest in something. A security is an interest in something. The easiest security example is a stock. A stock is an interest in a company. You own a technical, say if we bought an Apple stock, a very, very tiny percentage, but that is a security in itself. As set forth, defendant offered the plaintiff an interest in a joint venture in specific real property, which was in effect a passive investment vehicle through which plaintiff expected to earn a profit through the efforts of the defendant. Therefore, in reality, the defendant solicited the plaintiff to invest in a security as the term is defined by New Jersey law and federal law, which usually is not used in this manner, but definitely falls under it definitely falls in the definition. It's an interest in something, and that something includes a promise of ownership. So there we go. There we go. And the sixth count is solely for DJ Envy, is the only one being held accountable for the sixth count, which is conspiracy to commit fraud, securities fraud, negligent misrepresentation, and to violate the New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act. And honestly, in reading this whole case, all I could hear was my dad telling me over and over again when I was in high school, you don't need friend. Your book is your friend. Because if we were to take the super, super kind and kind of, a blind, very you'd have to jump through a lot of hoops to really think he didn't know anything. You'd have to jump through a lot of mental gymnastics to be like, okay, so you didn't hear any complaints in 3 years that your friend, your business partner was doing this? You didn't need a friend. You didn't need a friend if that's what your friend is doing. Maybe, focusing on yourself sometimes is good. Because if that's the type of commotion your friend is going to bring into your life, I don't recommend it. That's probably where we got it from. The Nigerian parents be saying that too. Listen, always followed by a slap on the head with said book. Yeah, it's great. It was a great childhood. Which brings us to the beginning of something Cesar said, which was, we need group economics that, am I out of the focus? Hold on. Oh, okay. To move around. We need group economics as how Black and brown people are going to get out of systemic poverty in this country. That is not correct. That's not correct. And the reason why it's not correct is because it ignores systemic racism. Systemic racism has to be eradicated in order for Black people specifically to be given the things that Black people are deserved in this place. DJ Envy does identify as an ambiguous Black. So if he is so supportive and he is very vocal about occasionally defending and upholding certain members of the Black community, group economics is largely based off of immigrant economics, which is people, I would say mistakenly, because it's usually applied to specific East Asian communities, not all Asian communities, and then applied to everyone else. Which group economics is the idea that, hey, if we pool all of our money, we can buy the block, and therefore we can shield ourselves from racism, and everything is going to be great if we pool all of our money. The idea of group economics does not work if your whole purpose of pooling all the money is to profit off of the backs of people's foreclosure, aka off of the people on the block. And it largely ignores one of the facts that's stated in this video, so highly recommend. I've watched the whole video. I hate when YouTube is like, you click on it and it's like, oh, you only watched 5 minutes. I watched the whole video. Great video by Amy Chen of Circus Fairy 33 and George from The Conscious Lee. It's on George's page over here on YouTube, which is Asian Businesses in the Black Communities Explained. And in the video, Amy details how East Asian communities, specifically in some Southeast Asian communities, are incentivized and actually giving loans to specifically open businesses in the Black community. Group economics is not going to solve that. That is specific because white supremacy hates Black people. White supremacy, the whole purpose of it is to disrupt anybody who is not white, to cause consternation, to have everyone arguing. And yes, there are other elements of cultural differences in there. I'm very vocal about we're not going to be POC together until we all start doing this group project together. And largely, she does a great job of explaining like, hey, look at what federal programs have incentivized specific malarkey, consternation, nonsense, and all out foolishness. So I highly recommend watching that video. And when you look at group economics, when you look at Black immigrants are often brought up when you talk about group economics, and like, look, Black immigrants, first generation Black immigrants are generally earning more money than our African-American counterparts. And that always ignores the fact that the majority of Black immigrants, and I say this every time, all refugees are immigrants and not all immigrants are refugees. Refugees are people who are fleeing from extreme poverty, fleeing from political oppression, fleeing from famine, war, etc. People coming from parts of Sudan, for example. Technically, you could classify a lot of Haitian immigrants as refugees as well, having grown up in Miami. That is not the same as a Jamaican like myself, my family coming over here in the 80s with not a lot of money, but a little bit of money. That is not the same as my grandma coming over here and saving up money for 3 years, living in people's attic, my uncle living in a bathtub, and then my godfather who already had a little bit of money fronting the down payment for my grandparents' house. That level of group economics doesn't trickle down to second generation. It doesn't. Statistically, it has shown that if we are counting the first generation as the immigrant that's in the country, so let's say my dad, both my parents are first generation immigrants. Technically, I always say I'm first generation American born, but it depends like which scholarly research, they just interchange the term. But let's say the first generation is the immigrant themselves. So they came to this country, they didn't have a lot, but they had a little bit. Having a little bit helps a lot because you also move to enclaves of, I'm forgetting the word right now, where chain immigration, you move to enclaves where there are other Jamaicans. There's a reason why there are huge amount of Jamaicans in a cold ass place such as New York, because there was one that was like, we're going to come and we're going to do it. And everyone else was like, okay, we're going to come and we're going to do it. I don't know why. I always question this. Why did we move to New York? You just moved to Miami first. Miami is closer, it's warmer, the climate is more similar. But anyways, lots of Jamaicans come to New York, realize they're cold, move to Miami. That's what my family did. So you have the first generation immigrant, then you have the second generation. So now the first generation American born. So me, that one, honestly, would succeed probably because of the beatings and the guilt and the little bit of leg up that being from that economic status. Most Black immigrants are coming from middle-class background. They don't have a lot of money, but they have a little bit. Even starting with that little bit helps a long way. By the time, if I ever have children, that is done. It's done. Statistically, it shows then we are all the same because white supremacy, systemic racism is like, oh, y'all ain't getting nothing. Absolutely not. Those little gains you got, take everything. And that's how it works. So this idea of constantly pitting immigrants, which are they, where did I put this? always have to remember like which video, which stats are in. In the first student loan video about student loan forgiveness that we did a live stream of, all the stats are in there. In pitting Black Americans against Black immigrants, there are almost 33 million Black people in this country. Only 3 million of them said people is Black immigrants. It's not that many of us. We're just very loud. And, depending on which one's slightly problematic, we need some work. I'm not afraid of like calling us out on that. However, the larger issue, whenever we look at all of this, is what are the regulations, the laws, the redlining in place to ensure that Black people never own anything? And pretending to be a Black capitalist and masquerading around because you want to buy the block and then turn into your white landlord is doing what for anybody? Nothing. It's doing nothing for anybody. All right, let us continue in, which is buy the block and be the best Black capitalist you can be. With the sarcasm there, just in case you're listening and you're now looking at the screen. Now, enough can never be said about how Jay-Z has literally sold off large swaths of Brooklyn and made Brooklyn largely a huge curb appeal to gentrification. So, this is from Twitter, which is now X, which is that's a whole separate conversation. It's from 2019, which you have Jay-Z saying, Jay-Z performs new freestyle, gentrify your own hood before these people do it. How about you not? How about we not? How about we invest in the community and buy the children books and, demand that our taxpayer money work for us? How about we do that? To which John Moore, rep, replied, poor Black people, and quote, we have limited access. We have limited to no access to vegetables. A lot of Black neighborhoods are food deserts, education, or clean water. Jackson, Mississippi comes to mind. We live paycheck to paycheck and have no time to think or dream about how to get free. Black capitalist response, gentrify your own hood. To which someone, which their Twitter handle is called FreeHoldEstad, said, I strictly think he's saying that minorities in general should look to invest in their own community to help keep it a minority community. All Black and brown people aren't poor, and that doesn't have to be the only narrative for our folks. Whether or not you want that to be the narrative is irrelevant because it's the truth. I have enough time showed so many statistics to show that Black people are statistically kept in forced poverty, and people are barely in middle class living paycheck to paycheck in forced poverty. For people to stop with this lie that we have to stop saying Black people are poor. Why? It's the truth. Not acknowledging the truth is not making the truth go away. It's interesting to me that in this country, largely, we think of poverty as a moral failing. And the reason why in the United States, the place of great expectation, the place of unlimited opportunities, the American dream that is entirely a myth, if you let people and you force into people's mind that poverty is a choice, that poverty is a moral failing, you can tell people, well, you didn't work hard enough. You didn't pull yourself up by them bootstraps, even though you don't even have on no shoes. This is why you're poor. And you can con people into fighting with each other, into thinking that they're so much closer to becoming Jeff Bezos when we are all so much closer to the unhoused person, which makes no absolute sense. And it reminds me of this. Yes, Kevin Reavers, using new words like capitalist, which Jay-Z be just saying things sometimes. And then a lot of our faves or people's former faves or current faves, however we feel about it, admitting that they don't like to read books when they have obnoxious, I'm not saying that word right, obnoxious amounts of free time. It's objectively wild. It's objectively wild. It's laughable, and it would be laughable if it wasn't so harmful. Which, a little clip about late stage capitalism and these Negroes.
But you know who's more upset than Jay-Z and his whiny rants? The people of Marcy Projects that he keeps mentioning. The only thing I could say he really did for us was the Christmas stuff. Every Christmas, he would come around and he would give out free toys to the kids, or like pocketbooks, perfumes, and little MP3 players. That was good. The Bitcoin ain't it. By the Bitcoin ain't it, Jay-Z, along with Jack Dorsey, the former CEO of Twitter and founder of Twitter, another billionaire, though not Black, decided that sponsoring a 12-week Bitcoin program to the residents of Marcy Projects was a good idea. First of all, the level of tone-deaf foolishness on one hand, and then on the other hand, the predatory nature of thinking that this was a good idea. Bitcoin, first and foremost, is a speculative asset, as we have seen in the news for years, but most recently are seeing with the very wild fluctuations. And no, I'm not about to argue with you why telling people who are on their literal last that, hey, you're going to get out of poverty using the speculative asset makes no goddamn sense. Jay-Z and his team spent a Qcoin in all of the external PR. That is marketing it to tech companies, etc. Came to the actual marketing of the course to the resident. They literally just threw ugly flyers onto the
amount
floor.
of money
Level
people
of
waste
disrespect.
pretend like they're helping
But
poor
you know,
people
at least he
wild.
can tell people he's helping the people of Marcy Projects. According to one resident, this is where he reps, he's from, and all that, but he don't do nothing for us. It's for show. Honestly, if the people in Marcy Projects received $1 every time Jay-Z said Marcy Projects, they would be better off than attending that Bitcoin class. To Gerald, the image of Bitcoin Academy flyers strewn on the floor spoke volumes. The fact that it was on the floor like that honestly symbolizes how people feel about poor people in general. On the surface, it looks like folks want to help, but once you start peeling back the layers, you realize nobody really cares. If Jay wanted to help Marcy Projects, he would help renovate Marcy Projects. He would help with the systemic issues that plague the people who live in Marcy Projects. He would lobby NYCHA to do a better job. He would give rent subsidies, education subsidies, not occasionally tossing around toys, which allegedly he hasn't even done that since 2017. Speaking of people who also hate poor people and
Not the
affordable
school.
housing.
Look like clowns. I am not bluffing. I will take it all off the table.
All right, I'm gonna take one more comment from I see Dave is on. All right, Dave, go ahead.
I just want to say I'm adamantly opposed to it. Obviously, I live behind the development or the proposed development. I do have many business interests in town. I've invested millions of dollars in town. If you push this thing through, what I'm investing in is no longer applicable.
To add insult to injury, after Dave Chappelle killed the affordable housing deal in his little village, he went ahead and bought a decent chunk of the land that originally was going to go to the affordable housing. Now, if you're sitting there ready to get your Twitter fingers out to tell me you are still taking lunch with Jay-Z over the $10, $20, $30,000, hold.
All right. Should do another one of those. All right, let me turn my AC off. I turned it on for a second. The interesting part is that the people that look up to Jay-Z, which is a lot of people, as this bastion of like, Jay-Z made it out of Marcy Projects. I too can make. Jay-Z is an anomaly. Jay-Z is an anomaly of an anomaly of an anomaly of an anomaly, which shout out to him. But you only get to be that level of anomaly if A, the hard work meets a wild amount of luck, and B, you don't give a damn about anybody else. This is Brooklyn Museum, which if you live in Brooklyn, you might not recognize Brooklyn Public Library. You might not recognize why does our Brooklyn Public Library look like this? Because the walls they're like a marble-ish stone, a white stone. It never usually has this. It has wrapping paper on it, and it will have wrapping paper on it for the next month or so, which is interesting. And that is because a few weeks ago, they decided to throw Jay-Z a huge celebration of his life in Brooklyn Public Library. And I cannot tell you enough how much has grated my nerves, how much has grated all the nerves of all the people in Brooklyn I know, aka the residents of Brooklyn, people that have lived in Brooklyn many, many years, because Brooklyn Public Library, if you're somebody that likes the library, which I like the library, is one of the saddest examples. And it's all of the libraries in New York, I would say in general, but specifically Brooklyn Public Library, because it's so beautiful on the outside. It's one of the saddest examples of just underfunding of taxpayer money, of really misallocation of taxpayer money, and that they do not clean Brooklyn Public Library. Brooklyn Public Library is dirty. They do not care about the people in Brooklyn Public Library. Brooklyn Public Library and a lot of public libraries have become refuges of last resort, of last hope for unhoused people who don't have anywhere else to go. Brooklyn Public Library is not, I can just go in the middle of the day and go calmly sit in Brooklyn Public Library, like the cafe. I tried it a few times. It was sad. It was really, really sad. But Jay-Z, the billionaire, was in town. So not only did they clean it, they spit shined it, and Beyonce was there, and they put up a huge exhibit, multiple exhibits, a shrine essentially to Jay-Z. In Brooklyn Public Library, that for years hasn't had any money to do the things that the people that actually work at the library want to do for the community. But apparently it's okay for Jay-Z to maximize the 350,000 square feet of community property. So, according to the New York Times, and this still grates my nerves, I refuse to go walk by there because I feel like I'm going to get like really upset. The only way to walk into, well, there are multiple entrances to Prospect Park, but the main entrance to Prospect Park, you have to cross Brooklyn Public Library. So I'm like, y'all are robbing me of the park because I don't want to look at it. If I look at it, I'm going to get mad. On Thursday evening, this is about 2 weeks ago, when Jay-Z entered the library for a private event, mind you, private event, as in rich people, the bourgeoisie, everyone else, but the people that live in the mother effing community. Surrounded by an inner circle of family, friends, and the business associates, he was greeted by his live band. I ain't never seen a live band in Brooklyn Public Library, playing instrumental versions of his hits out front and a career-spanning archival exhibition that he never asked for inside. I think it's really interesting. This article is like, Jay-Z didn't ask for it. It's not Jay-Z's fault that we have this obnoxious amount of money spent to honor this man who literally was a former owner and helped usher in Barclays Center, which Barclays Center decimated a whole Black neighborhood. But no, Jay-Z didn't ask for that. Okay. Yeah, okay, sure. I know, according to Desiree Perez, the chief executive of Jay-Z's entertainment empire Roc Nation, I know he wouldn't let us do this about keeping such elaborate plans from the boss. This could never happen if he was involved. Desiree, girl, you ought to be ashamed. You ought to be ashamed. Truthfully, there's no other way to say this besides shame on you. Shame on you for co-opting a public space and not even saying like, hey, let's at least let the little kids of there's 5 different elementary schools within walking distance of Brooklyn Public Library. Girl, bye. Enough. To which all of Jay-Z's nice, really expensive things, according to Desiree, Jay belongs to the people. I'm people, and I would like to know if we are going to auction off these things and give to the school children or give to the people with student loans or give to the elderly people who are being gentrified like my neighbors outside of their homes. I would like to know. If we're going to sell all these things. Because what is the purpose of them being in there taking up space? The community didn't ask for that. It's a place that feels comfortable. It's not intimidating. A lot of people go to the museum, but a lot of people don't. It's a place that feels comfortable. It's not intimidating. It lets me know that Desiree Perez has not stepped foot inside the Brooklyn Museum in a decade. The Brooklyn Museum, unfortunately, does not feel comfortable nor not intimidating because the Brooklyn Museum is largely, once you step inside of it, gives a vibe of just decrepit, needs help. There is a lot of need there. You know, I was just flabbergasted. I was just really flabbergasted that not only they did this, that they just paraded around in it like, haha, okay, great. Public space for who? They don't live in Brooklyn. They don't live in Prospect Heights, Crown Heights, or Flatbush, which are 3 neighboring areas next to the Brooklyn Public Library, whose taxpayer monies fund the Brooklyn Public Library. Y'all don't have any business up in our library. And on the left, Nicola Yeoman and Dan Tobin Smith mashup of instruments that was photographed for the Blueprint 3 cover. How much is this? You know what? If people start mobbing and robbing the Brooklyn Public Library, I'm not going to say anything. I'm really not. A Gucci jacket tied to the release of Jay-Z's 2010 memoir, Decoded. A Gucci jacket in a place where unhoused people sleep because, again, the whole neighborhood, all the neighborhoods around the Brooklyn Public Library are being rapidly gentrified. Okay. Cool. Great. So annoyed. To which they acknowledge, while the valuables will require additional security, but we, the people and the residents, we didn't require additional security or cleaning or any of the things that people need when they go to the public library. Brooklyn Public Library was not paying for any of the production for the show, she added. They footed the bill for the day of the show. Are y'all going to foot the bill for the security? Are y'all going to foot the bill for the fact that you're taking up large amounts of space in a space that is literally not for you? Roc Nation is doing a lot for us financially, Johnson said, including a substantial donation tied to the gala in October when Jay-Z and his mother, Gloria Carter, will be honored. I'm so glad that they're going to have a fancy gala to eat off of gold plates. Is giving Marie Antoinette and that quote she never said, which is let them eat cake and let us take up their spaces. And you know what? Who cares? Because it's all about Jay-Z. Child. Foolishness. And something that they could do and you could help instead is This 93-year-old Hilton Head Island great grandma, her name is Josephine. Oh gosh, what is Miss Josephine's? Josephine Wright. Josephine Wright, who currently is on the verge of losing her home in Hilton Head, South Carolina. I said North Carolina, sorry, South Carolina. In Hilton Head, South Carolina, because if you're familiar with South Carolina, Hilton Head is a large, what is now turned into a very resort-esque part of South Carolina, aka rich people want to see the beauty of South Carolina, but they don't want the Negroes that work that land to be in said South Carolina. So they're trying to build a development around her home that she and her family have lived in since after the Civil War. Because to hell with everything, and how dare these Negroes own anything. So there is a GoFundMe for her. You can donate to that, which I saw Snoop Dogg did send $10,000 to her legal fund, which she on her own, and now with the help of other people, is fighting these property developers to keep her land and to keep her land and her family. So whenever I see things like buy back the block, like, oh yeah, you know what? As long as we have it, it's fine. Who is the we? Because if the we is rich people like Jay-Z, who's so out of touch with reality that he's giving Bitcoins to people that live in Marcy projects, that's not a we. That's not a we that we're a part of if the people only getting to go to Brooklyn Public Library during the time Brooklyn Public Library has ever been cleaned and look the most beautiful are Jay-Z and Beyonce. Which, have shade to Beyonce for that. Like, sister, and why? Why? What was the reason? What was the reason? All right, so I figured I would leave y'all with some helpful tips because I know often real estate is positioned as this thing you have to do. That's how you get ahead. However, there are plenty of other things you can do for personal finance 101. And as somebody who used to have shit credit, and we've talked about this before, and owed $150,000 more than I owe now, you know what? I have learned a few things from some very helpful people here on the internet. So the first thing is with money management, you got to learn how to budget. You have to learn how to count your coins, whether they're big or small, how to manage them. Bitch, I'm Budgeting, which is Selma, who runs, it's literally called Bitch, I'm Budgeting on Instagram. Great Instagram page. She's also a really nice person. And as she says here, real relatable money tips. And they're very relatable. She's a teacher, very easy to follow, easy to use. She also does like investment advice as well. So this is one of the challenges she's doing this month, which is the simple task of tracking all of your expenses. I started this yesterday. I'm not gonna lie. I got back from Austin last week. So I was like, oh, this is a little scary. You know what? Maybe I have laxed off a little bit. So I really recommend starting with her. She's wonderful. I really like her stuff. The Budget Nisa as well, I've heard great things about as well. And it's very accessible because you got to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. So you got to start with the budget first before you get into the other things. Don't let people bamboozle you into thinking that you need to go invest all your last into buying a house that they don't even own. That'll make no sense. How to fix your credit by yourself for free. When we covered Dana Chanel and her alleged credit report scamming Sprinkle of Jesus lawsuit, at the end of it, I went through how I fixed my credit. What was it? It was bad. Like when I was in my early 20s, was it ever in the 6s? I don't know. It was bad. It is now in the 800s. I have great credit. I have good credit because I did a lot of research and figured out it's very easy steps. Do not give those credit repair people your money. The majority of them are getting sued because the majority of them are scamming. We covered it on Patreon the other day, how one of these alleged credit repair companies, she allegedly is involved in a murder for hire plot because someone ousted her for being a scammer. It has escalated into foolishness. So go over to that video. It's towards the end of the video. I think it's marked, and all the steps on how to do it yourself for free, easy peasy are there. Okay. Yes, we need to do an update. I need to look it up. That's a good. I just looked her up today. I was looking for an update. I need to look and see what happened with her case because, child, she told on herself multiple times. Hey, Berlin, how are you? We had so much fun, by the way, at DreamCon. Y'all should go to DreamCon. It was a lot of fun, and Berlin looked beautiful, by the way. You know what's so funny? I recognized your cosplay afterwards. I was like, oh, is that the volleyball one? So glad you're here. All right. So once you fix your credit, say you know all the basic stuff, which I've shouted out Nika before, you have debt like me, you got student loans. Nika is a great, I would say, just a great resource. She's very up to date, up to speed with all the student loan stuff. I usually do like the monthly of like, okay, this is what's going on a month. Nika is every day. So highly recommend. She recently got her student loans discharged through public student loan forgiveness. So if you are thinking about doing PSLF, she has a free workbook. You can use it. It's great. And she's also super helpful. So highly recommend if you have debt, you start there with Nika as well. This is on Instagram, her page. Now, say you want to move on to investing, I really recommend this book, The Boglehead Guide to Investing. Yes, the book sounds silly. It's an easy read, and it will tell you what the order of operations for investing is. I'm not even going to kid you. Shout out to my dear friend Francis. When we used to work at this tiny startup back in the day, and I had to eat my humble pie and ask him, like, well, what's the difference between a Roth IRA and a 401k? And which one am I supposed to start? And how the hell do I even log in? Oh, let me fix this real quick. How the hell do I even log in? And all of that in the next. And this book is really good. It lays out for you like what the order of operations should be if you are, once you have gotten your emergency fund together and you want to start investing your money. So you want your emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses, or if you're a freelancer, you want closer to a year, because child, it'd be up and down. It'd be up and down. Then you go to your tax advantage account. So 401k, 503b. Is it 501(b)? That's for the people that work in public service. So it's 503b or 501(b). I forget the actual acronym. The acronym might be wrong. That's offered through your employer. Then you have a Roth IRA, which you can work for yourself. You can do that on your own. Even if you work at a corporation, do a Roth IRA, get your company match. You would never walk by $20 on the street. Never. You would never just be like, oh, it's $20. Like whatever. A lot of these companies do give company matches, but they don't. It's not really incentivized to tell you like, hey, we have money for you. I think a better way to look at it instead of free money is this is part of my salary. So if your employer was like, okay, every Friday at 5:30, I give everyone $100. You just have to stay till 5:30. You would never say like, no, I got to catch a train. Like I'm not staying till 5:30 for my $100. You would get it. Think of it as like part of your employee compensation. It is free. It's money you're owed. Let them people run you your coins and go get your company match. I have some family members that we had to have this conversation, and I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean all these years you never, why? So we've started the account. You're never too old to start the account, because at the end of the day, I've noticed a lot of Black people, speaking from what I've noticed, financial literacy is sorely lacking in the US in general, but particularly because Black people have been gatekept out of that information. A lot of people think, okay, well, I can own my house, and if I pay off my house, I'm good. What are you going to eat with at retirement? You can't eat the house. I have had family members where we've had the conversation. They don't got no 401k, no Roth IRA, no brokerage. I'm like, well, how are you? They're like, I'm going to sell the house. I was like, okay, so say we sell the house so that we can make some money. Housing is so high now. You're going to sell that house to buy a house that's the same price. So you need to, slowly, you can slowly do it. Me and my aunt have been doing it together every month. We invest her money in her Roth IRA. I'm super proud of her. And yeah. It's easy. You got to take that baby steps. Take the baby steps. And she is a young 50-something looking good. It's never too late to start that process. And I know it's given her a lot of peace of mind. So highly recommend getting this book, Boglehead Guide to Investing. And the last part that they take a long time to walk through is taxable brokerage. So what is an index fund? Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab. What does low cost mean? How much are you paying in fees? Should you do individual stocks versus index fund? Most people will say, oh yeah, index funds are actually better. I tend to agree. I have my little brokerage, a little cute coin in there. Don't rob me. Don't do that. Whatever. And the idea of that is you need some money that you can pull out before you're 65, because anything that's tax advantage, if you pull out from your 401k, you'll pay a hefty fee. You shouldn't touch it. So there is a lot of things to learn, and it's okay. The first step is knowing that like you don't know. And that was my first step. When I was 26 and I was like, yo, my credit is awful. Like I should fix this. I had ignored my student loans. At that point, I just recently graduated law school at 25. I was like, I don't know anything about money. And I remember my grandpa, because I lived with my grandparents for a year when I graduated out after law school. And he was like, you need to do your 401k. But he didn't say why. So I was like, what does that mean? Like the paycheck is already low. what do you mean the 401k? And I was too ashamed to ask him what that meant. And so I asked my friend, who I was like, okay, like, you're not going to judge me because you're not my grandpa, whatever. But you just have to start somewhere. And so there are so many different entry points into starting and getting your financial life together. From somebody from 26 or 32, child is looking a lot better. It's looking a lot better. And honestly, you'll feel more comfortable in this very unstable ass environment, being like, well, if it all goes to crap, I should be all right for a year. At the very least. At the very least. All right. And then I would say, if you don't want to read the book, no worries. The first start I started with before I even got that book was Our Rich Journey here on YouTube, which they have a huge channel with a lot of different information. All of their information is free. I'm going to put this out there as a disclaimer. They are selling courses now. However, all of that information is free on their channel. You just have to navigate where you want to see it. So, and I like that they have different things for different people at different ages. So it depends on what age you are. You can literally find a video of like how to start being better with money in your 20s, how to start in your 30s, how to start in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s. They're a married couple. They also have great communication. I would say their videos are about 10 minutes long. I'm like, what is popping up on my screen? So it is a good starting place. They have retired. They're living a good life. So starting there, I really enjoy them. And it's also just nice, to see some happy people. All right. And this is my favorite blog. I think I only have 2 more. So I know I left a lot of them on here, but this is always saved. This will be saved for all of y'all, so y'all can save them. And I'll make sure to link all of these below as well. ESI Money, in my opinion, it's esimoney.com, is the most underrated financial blog on the internet. And the reason why I specifically pulled up this series from them, this is the Millionaires Overview, Stories from the Wealthy. So some have just over 1 million, while others have over 10 million. It's not to pocket watch people and be like, oh, look at what these rich people are doing. No, they're interviewing regular people. Usually people, they're in their 60s. Some people, like, I've read a few as young as like 35, but most of the people are 60s, recently retired. Technically, if you were to retire in the US, you need 25 times the amount of your expenses. The math is not going to be all the way right on this, so it's fine. Course correct later. If you spend about $50,000 a year, let me just do the math because somebody's gonna be like, that math is wrong. Okay, so if your expenses are $50,000 a year, that is $1,250,000 you need for retirement. That sounds like a lot of money. Of course, a lot of money at the end, but you take your whole life to build it up, etc. In the millionaire interviews, what they do is they interview retired people or people who just even hit $1 million, and they show, hey, how did you earn, save, and invest? That's what ESI stands for. What brokerage do you use? Who's your 401k with? What exactly are you invested in? Do you believe in single stock? Do you own any real estate? Do you own a home? What part of the country do you live in? It gets into their business. And there's something very, I think, gratifying, to be honest, for most people, where if I don't know how to do something, I want to see proof of concept from somebody else. I want to see that somebody else did it in a non-judgy way. And that's the best way to go because they're very detailed. They're about, I'd say, 10 to 15 minute reads, depending on how detailed the person they interviewed with the answer are. There's hundreds of these interviews. I used to, when I first was starting to learn how to manage my money, I would read one every day because some of the questions are, how do you feel about money? How did you feel about money as a kid? What did your parents do with their money? It's similar to, I used to do like little reactions to them on Instagram, Refinery 29, when they do money diaries. It's like that, but with people that have figured it out. That's the best person you want to learn from. And it's very straightforward because these are regular people. Some of them are teachers. Some of them are business owners. I don't think I've ever read a content creator. That would be so interesting. I want to try find one. Some of them specifically, there are a few Black women in there specifically because it's mostly older white men that submit to be interviewed. But I have read a few of them specifically from Black women because they say, like, as a Black woman, like, this is the different factors. Like, I take care of my family. I have Black tax. I have all these other things. How did I manage this on my corporate salary or my teacher salary or whatever? So I really recommend this website. It's excellent. And they have like so many different things that I wouldn't even know to ask to even learn. So it's a great website to poke around. The author of the blog. He's been doing the blog for 10 years. So it's a wealth of knowledge. Wealth of knowledge. So recommend that. And then if you just want to watch something on television, I really wish they would have titled this series something else because I thought it was a scam. I'm not going to lie. When I saw How to Get Rich on Netflix, I was like, what scamming is this? Like, what kind of nonsense? This is Ramit. I think he is a podcaster originally. He might be on YouTube. He has a series on Netflix. It's great. It's excellent. I highly recommend it. It's similar to ESI. Is it ESI Money or ESI.com? Let me make sure I tell y'all the right website. It's ESImoney.com, actually. You know what? Let me just put it in here so I'm telling y'all the right thing. Sorry. I'm going to link all of these as well. Yes, it's clickbait, but they mean well. So How to Get Rich is essentially like esimoney.com, but in real time. So he goes into people's homes, he interviews them, he talks to them about their money habits. He's like, hey, like why are y'all constantly getting Amazon deliveries, but y'all don't got enough income for said Amazon deliveries? Like, let's talk about this. Like, what can I help you with, etc. Again, I think the best way to learn is from somebody doing it. And it's very straightforward. It's very compassionate. He's very kind. I don't believe in the Dave Ramsey way. As somebody, when I first was like, I'm going to pay off my student loans, the big buzz name for debt payoff is Dave Ramsey. I tried rice and beans for 6 months. That shit will make you miserable. Rice and beans don't let you buy any sparkly earrings. Rice and beans will have you feeling like you're the worst person alive because you spent $2. It's not sustainable. So I highly recommend How to Get Rich, even like as a starting point. So say you want to start backwards, start there and like find, a few of the resources that you're comfortable with. Don't start with all of them. It's overwhelming. I started with Our Rich Journey. That's what I started with years ago because they also paid off student loans. The wife is a lawyer. So I was like, okay, I need someone that has student loans. And again, I haven't paid off my student loans, but I do have 401k, a Roth IRA, and a brokerage. You could do them simultaneously. I would have never known that until I saw Christina and Aman from Our Rich Journey. Christina be like, yeah, of course. Why? Why would I not get my 401k match? I was like, you're right, girl. Why would I walk away from $3,000 that was free? What sense would that make? That doesn't make sense. Why would I put that towards the student loans? So I think that finding somebody that you connect with, it's online or in real life, that's not trying to sell you nothing. It's free. Is the best way to start. And it will get a little easier. And then, of course, we have my student loan series that will continue to on this channel because I still owe $163,000 trifling dollars after paying 150. Are we at 154,000 paid off now? I think. So the channel, the series will still exist. So, I'm still here. I'm still here for the student loan parts. And then, yeah. So I appreciate y'all. And hopefully this was helpful. I don't have it linked yet, but I will link all of these resources down below so that way you can go back, you can test some of them out, and figure out like what works for you. But I will say, if you don't manage your money, the money will manage you. And that's a lesson I learned in my 20s. Like, it doesn't matter. The money doesn't care. If you don't tell it what to do, it will do whatever it wants to do. And that can become very overwhelming and frightening. And in my 30s, what I've learned now is like, okay, you can still fight all these systemic oppressive forces and still be like, okay, well, I can control this small amount and I want to make sure my anxiety is not too damn high. And having at least an understanding of your money, it'll lower your shoulders. Most definitely. So yes. All right. Well, on that note, I think I got there. I get through all the comments. I did. I posted on my Instagram. Did you see the Reggae Girls made history and made it to the knockout stage? Yes, I did. And during Emancipation Independence Week at that. So shout out to the Reggae Girls doing it. Yes, it is a yes, because I want to be financially literate, but it's so boring. We all got ADHD. I would say start with How to Get Rich by, how did I forget? I just said the man's name. Ravi. Lord. I forgot the man's name as we just said that. Start with him. He's not boring at all. And it's interesting. And this is an awful thing to say, but sometimes you feel better when you're like, okay, so I'm not doing the worst, like I'm doing awful. And it can get a little bit better because you do see people's progress as they go through it. And the richest woman on that show, it's a mess. Just hemorrhaging hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you're like, okay, well, that's interesting. So I would start with his show then. And also, surprisingly, Boglehead's Guide to Investing is written in a very like witty and funny way. So I recommend. All right. So let me go through some of these comments. Yeah, he makes me depressed. He's also a jackass. Like, we did is there one video or two videos? There are two separate lawsuits we did about him. Oof. What a human. That man is something else. Ramit, that's his name. Sorry. I was like, what is the man's name? I met Ramit at FinCon. Very good speaker. I want to go to FinCon one year. Looks like really helpful information there. Thank you, Boo. Yes, the triceps are looking good. They are looking good. All right. Listen. And if y'all are getting it together before 26, shout out to y'all. Because, 23-year-old me was on a struggle bus. To foolishness. All right. So Roth IRA is actually post-tax, and then 401k is pre-tax. So with the Roth IRA, when you take it out at 65, you don't have to pay any more taxes because you already paid them. And with the 401k, you don't pay any taxes. It comes out like, your healthcare comes out itemized. And then at 65, you pay whatever tax bracket you're in. So they have pros and cons to both, which we could go through, but depends. Listen, it's always the aunties. I had to get on my aunt who didn't take her match. Me and my auntie had that conversation last week. And I was like, wait, what? Why would you do this? But you know what? It's never too late. It's never too late to fix it. All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and go eat some dinner. I appreciate y'all. And I will link these really quick. And then for Patreon, I'm going to update Patreon in like 20 minutes. And we're going to do the unfortunate Lizzo lawsuit on Sunday. And speaking of student loans, with student loan update. So student loans are supposed to go back. Just to put this out there in case, y'all also have student loans, you're paying them. The interest on student loans is supposed to start accruing on September 1st. So keep that in mind. I think either the last video I did on student loans or the video before, I went through the math. I know we did math. That's how much I care about y'all. We did the math of how to calculate what your daily interest rate is. So it would be a good idea on September, even though the first payment is not technically due till October 1st, to calculate how much is your monthly interest. So that way you make that payment. So at least it's not tacking onto your principal. So I appreciate y'all. And I'm not looking forward to that. And beware of scams. The scammers have already started, specifically if you have student loans. If you do not know your login, call the Department of Education. You don't know who your student loan service provider is. A lot of them have changed. Mine changed. It got sold off. Call the Department of Education. The website, let me put it here for you. Do not just give people your information because the scamming has already started. I've gotten a few. I'm like, what is this? Department of Education. I'm about to put the website in here. It's ed.gov. And then, all right. And then it will lead you through to student loans. But don't just start giving out your information to people because the scammers love a scam. All right. Well, I appreciate y'all, and I will catch y'all next week. Yeah. And I'll catch you on Patreon. Oh, we're doing Instagram Live tomorrow. So I'll catch y'all tomorrow. And I'll catch you on Patreon on Sunday. Have a good night.